helping us put this thing on. Which brings me to the topic of today's talk, which is decoding the digital landscapes, and Simone Iles, who is, I would say, one of New Zealand's greatest digital transformation leaders. She's currently Chief Executive of Asia Pacific Digital and has led digital transformation across many of New Zealand's biggest organisations. She's also an experienced chairperson, director and expert in governance, and we're very fortunate to have Simone here today to help us understand how to decode the digital landscape. So please join me in welcoming Simone Iles.
Right, well, thank you for that very kind introduction, although I'm a little concerned that to make the most out of today's presentation, here's the bathroom, so I'm not quite sure where we're going with that.
Just in case.
Just in case. So welcome. It's a great pleasure to be back at the Spark Lab, and I have to say I think that's a fantastic innovation from Spark, and as a Spark customer, very, very happy and proud to support that. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experiences, and I have a couple of colleagues in the room, so there's going to be some reminiscences without naming names, but to give you a little bit of my background, so I've had a reasonably broad background. I actually started out in data and direct marketing literally last century, and what's interesting about that is a lot of those principles about data and direct marketing actually haven't changed, but marketing automation and digital technology has changed the pace of how we use that technology and how we use that data. I've worked through retail, financial services, and telco. In my retail days, we used data to drive a massive change in the business that I worked for at the time. We went from $250 million to a $500 million company in the space of 3 years. And what drove a lot of that was actually the use of data and good predictive modelling and good strategic principles. It was a little harder. We didn't actually have the technology platforms that we have today. And for any techies in the room, we were using an AS400. So that was a very sad and difficult time in my life. But the outcomes were worth it. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can actually use digital technology to transform and grow your business. Very happy to take questions as we go. So for me, innovation is, yes, technology is a big part of that, but it's really about how you use technology to really rapidly change your business. And one of the things that's happened in the last little while is the pace of change. And if I look back over my career, whilst strategy and principles haven't changed significantly, it's the rate of change, the way that we need to adapt and be flexible and be nimble, that's the bit that's changed. So if you think about, for instance, scale, and if you say, okay, scale is critical mass is 50 million users. Radio, any idea how long it took radio to get 50 million users? Have a guess, somebody.
60.
How long?
60.
60, good. Any advance on 60? Running an auction, sir, you look like you have an answer. Any advance on 60 years? I'm going to give you the answer, it's 34. TV, how many years do you think it took to get critical mass with television? 14. Internet, how long to get critical mass with the internet?
Very good, 4 years.
Facebook, 3.5 years. Pokemon Go, how many downloads, above 50 million, Pokemon Go, how long did that take? Close? It took around 7 days. So think about the point here, it's actually about the scale, the rapidity and the pace of change. That's the challenge that we face in businesses and organisations today. So we have customers and clients that we work with, and I've worked in a number of these industries. Retail, so we've got an online app we can purchase via our smartphone. Is that a digital strategy? Yes, no? What do we think? Okay, actually I would say it's not, it's channel strategy. Enabled by digital, it's actually a channel strategy. I flew down here this morning on our national carrier, very proud to fly in New Zealand. Now, if I rock on board with my app, I've ordered my coffee with my app, I'm loving the coffee ordering piece, that's fantastic. I don't have to carry any paper, I like that. Is that a digital strategy? Well, again, I would say no. It's actually a strategy that's about process efficiency. And yes, I'd say customer service using digital technology, but actually it's not in and of itself a digital strategy. So fundamentally, digital is not just the technology. It's actually how you use that to achieve your tactical objectives. So for me, value actually comes from how you adapt and adopt the technology. and how you use that to create value for your business. So what do I mean by that? Well, digital dexterity is something that we aim for to achieve in our business. It's about the ability to rapidly reorganise your business around a number of things, around customer, around markets, around the change in markets, your ability to adapt quickly, and around what the customer's changing need is about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the hallmarks and the characteristics of digital dexterity. So digital capability is one of the key elements that underpin dexterity. And what does that look like? Well, it's the use of technology to improve customer experience, operational efficiency, and or employee engagement. So if you think about the example of Air New Zealand, which I think is a wonderful example, that has improved customer experience, it has improved operational efficiency significantly, and if you're not having to deal with really grumpy customers all the time, I'd imagine employee engagement would be up as a result of it as well. There's a couple of really good examples. We'll dig a little deeper into digital capability and what that entails. So as I talked about, customer experience, operations efficiency, and workforce enablement. So there's some good examples there. There's a L'Oreal makeup example on the slide. But one of my favourite ones, who's been to Disneyland? Okay, a few people in the room, right? I don't know if you've been recently, but they now have what they call the Magic Band. It's a wristband, a bit like a Fitbit, and it's an RFID chip-enabled Magic Band. So what that allows me to do, it's my room key. Okay, that makes good sense. It also allows me to buy merchandise, something that's very good when you've got small children that you've got dragging around Disneyland. It also allows me to book my place and ride, so I'm not queuing 4 hours for a ride. And if I want to, I can actually provide my own information and customise the experience by maybe sharing some information about my child. It's my child's 10th birthday. And as we're wandering around Disneyland, Mickey Mouse comes up and says, "Happy birthday, Sam." So that's a fairly, from a kid's point of view, and actually from my point of view, is a really magical experience that I enjoyed immensely. So that's a good example of using technology to enhance the customer experience, to increase your operational efficiency. And I don't know if anybody has worked at Disneyland, but their workforce enablement, the way in which they train people, is incredible. It's very prescribed, it's very specific, you're not allowed to point. Minnie Mouse is not that way, Minnie Mouse is this way. So enabling how you train people by something like having online apps so I can actually see what I'm supposed to do, having video, that's the way in which we use the technology platforms to actually change the way we do business and improve the efficiency of that. But it's not just technology. Technology on its own, in and of itself, actually doesn't solve anything. It's about our ability to bring together people. And I think personally that would be one of the hardest things that I've experienced in trying to create value for business. And the real challenge behind that is not just making sure we're really clear about our objectives, that we've got an aligned team, but actually it's that speed, it's how we organise and reorganise ourselves to take advantage or to move markets, to pivot as quickly as we can and run our business in a really agile way. So developing a digital organisation, what does that look like? Well, there's really 3 or 4 key principles. The first thing is a digital-first mindset. The second thing is around operations around practices, workforce and resources. And I'll dig a little more into what do I mean by each of these things. To begin with, digital-first mindset. Now, on this example, you can see we're saying, much like I said in the beginning, is digital mindset about having a branch, we've enabled the branch with technology? Is it about being online? Is it about being mobile? And having somebody who's specifically driven a particular tactic? Is it me saying, okay, I'm the e-commerce manager, so being online is digital and I'm going to drive that? Is it Joe saying, okay, well, I'm actually going to drive branch because I'm the operational efficiency guy. I'm going to make the operations really efficient in our branch environment. Or is it somebody else saying, okay, mobile, we're going to have a mobile app because that's what makes banking really cool and really easy for our customers. Individually, those things, yes, they use technology, but actually unless you combine those things together, that is not going to deliver you an efficient organisation. So a digital-first mindset is thinking about what do our customers need, how do we adapt for the market, and how do we work cohesively. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the lessons I've learned at the end around how you actually work cohesively and some of the first-hand challenges I've experienced. There won't be any names named in that. So digital practices. If you think about digital dexterity, digital capability, and digital practices, these are the three really main ingredients in bringing your organisation together. So practices, it covers operations, collaborative learning, and data-driven decisions. These concepts aren't new. You know, as I said at the beginning, we were using data-driven decisions, back in the 90s. And to be honest, before that, data is not new. It's been around for a very long time, informing how we make decisions. But it's the agility and the speed and how nimble we can be as organisations that's actually changed that. So if I go back to the beginning of my career, we used to get Excel spreadsheets, we'd get data delivered to us from different, actually it doesn't sound that much different to a lot of what I see now, but the principles should have changed. But essentially we were dealing with data all over the place, trying to bring that together, doing data analytics in a fairly manual process. Now, technology and global enterprise systems has taken what we used to do in a month, and I can spit that out in an hour with some of the platforms that we use. So the ability for me to, again, pivot, change my market, change my offer, has changed dramatically in the space of a very few short years. One of the things that I find really interesting is the concept of how you think about your workforce. So in our world, workforce isn't just the people that we employ. It's actually a collaboration amongst our partners and our customers. So if I think about my business and how we go to market, we're an IBM Marketing Cloud partner. We have an array of products that we have, or services that we take to market that are all cloud-based, that are all global enterprise systems. And what's changed in a very short period of time, if I go back to 5 years ago, I was leading the digital transformation of a large organisation that had some real barriers to change, just not looking at you, Joe. And some of those challenges really were around how we actually galvanised our workforce inside the business. And one of the biggest learnings here is that collaboration with partners was fundamentally key, and alignment in our business from a board down to an executional layer was hugely important. And I would say, if you take anything away from today, my one thing that I would say to you, and it doesn't matter whether you're operating in a small business or in a large business, if you don't have, at a governance level, and I sit on boards, if you don't have a really clear strategy that your board is championing, that your C-suite is across and supporting, the likelihood for your project to derail is significant, and I imagine a number of us in the room will have had that experience. So that's one key thing, and depending on where you sit in an organisation and the transparency you have to that, it can be really challenging. I've been in the boardroom presenting to boards new platforms that we've developed, and I've had people getting stuck on, yes, but how do I log in? Well, you need to find ways to communicate with your different stakeholders, and you need to be smart about how you use your executive. Welcome, come on, grab a seat. So thinking about this point around workforce and how we collaborate with our partners, if we think about the feedback that we provide from our customers, from our stakeholders, that feedback that goes back into our customers, to our partners, and how they use that to adapt their services for what we take to market. We also have our own proprietary email marketing platform. It's the same thing. We work with our partners, we work with our customers to get feedback and adapt what we do in near real time. Speaking of customers and collaboration, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this case study, but Lego would be one of my favourites. Brendan, we seem to be not going forward here. Keys? Done. Okay, so Lego. For those of you who may not be familiar, this is a fantastic story. Back in 2006, Lego were about to be bankrupt. Now, they're a family-owned business. They are out of Denmark. They'd achieved pretty much global dominance in their category. If you don't remember standing on a piece of Lego and getting that on your foot and the pain of that, I would be surprised. Every kid had Lego growing up. Now, get to 2006, how does that company go from being a global brand that was pretty much in every household when I was growing up to almost bankruptcy? That was their story. So the interesting thing is, what did they do and how did they get out of that dynamic? They discovered through their social media that they actually had a group of adult superfans. Any adult superfans in the room today willing to admit to it? Yeah, one or two. Okay, great. So, you're the people that actually help that company turn itself around and survive. And not just survive, thrive. So this is a fantastic example of collaborating with your customers, the people who actually use your product, to get feedback from them around what they like, what they don't like, and what they'd like to do differently. And if you can see the examples below, these are examples of what was created out of the customer collaboration. I don't know why he's wearing a sweater vest, but apparently that was what was done. That's what came out of the collaboration. Digital resources. So when we talk about resource, it's about real-time customer data, integrated operations data, and around collaborative tools. Now, at this point, if you're sitting there going, why is she not talking about sexy stuff like blockchain and about all the new stuff that's happening out there and the bleeding edge technology? Well, there's two reasons. If you go and have a look at the Gartner hype cycle, that stuff is out in the 5 to 10 year window. What's actually in the 2-year window right now is actually marketing automation. Now that's coming into the peak of its use, and what that's telling us is all this amazing technology that we already have actually isn't being used that well in organisations. I was talking yesterday with a client. They're a large insurance company. They've acquired a number of businesses and they've brought those businesses together. So if you've worked inside an organisation that's gone through a number of acquisitions, that's really challenging because you're inheriting this legacy data, you're inheriting a whole lot of databases, a whole lot of platforms that actually aren't enterprise and cloud-based platforms now. So actually getting all of that to talk to each other is really incredibly challenging. But some organisations are doing it really well. There's the example of Lloyd's here. And if you think about, cutting the time it takes staff to close old accounts from 30 minutes to 3, that is in itself, go back to the whole point about collaboration and workforce, our people, and their engagement. If you're sitting in a bank taking 30 minutes to close an account, how frustrating is that? So our focus on improving operational efficiency, that might not sound like sexy digital stuff, but actually this is the stuff that turns your business into a winner. This is the stuff that gives you the competitive advantage. Another really great example is actually in the US, the courier company called UPS and their Orion system. So what they've done is they've actually used customer data, they've used real-time data, and they've used predictive modelling. And all of that has enabled them, and the States is pretty big, right? It's enabled them to use real-time data to change the routes as the delivery drivers make their deliveries, to optimise those routes, to improve customer efficiency, improve output and throughput of those drivers. Now, again, might not sound like a really exciting example of digital technology, but when you're running a multi-billion-dollar business, these small wins are actually about how you make profit and how you grow your business. And that, for me, is what digital technology is about. The next thing to focus on is how digital organisations continually advance the digital agenda. This comes back again to people. So I can have all the amazing systems in the world. If I don't have people using them, if I don't have teams of people engaged, if I don't structure my business well, and by that I mean we really operate in a much more project-based world now. So bringing together pods, teams of people who are expert in what they're doing, and then get to an end of the program, shift them, move them on to another program. That's about motivation, engagement, collaboration, shared knowledge, shared learning across the organisation. For me, this is one of the absolute fundamentals, and I've seen this time and time again, and I've experienced it firsthand. In one of the large corporates I worked in, the challenge here was human. Actually, it wasn't technology. It was a human challenge. It was about my agenda differed from your agenda and your agenda differed from your agenda. And we all reported up to the C-suite who reported to a board. And we all had a very vested interest. I was going to deliver to my KPIs. And hey, if your KPIs weren't aligned to mine, I was just going to win with my KPIs anyway. So that engagement, the collaboration and making sure that people are working collectively across the organisation, that's the bit that actually starts at the top. So that starts with the board, it starts with the engagement and really clear strategy with your C-suite, with the people who are responsible and accountable for delivering profitability and growth in your business. I've had some really interesting experiences where I've taken CEOs into our customers' environment and just getting some of those behavioural changes, getting people actually out of the office, getting into the customer experience. These things, they're not amazingly different concepts. This is not new news, folks. This is just what we should be doing and how we're doing it. But actually getting people out to experience the customer and then figure out what's your pain point, what isn't working. I had a wonderful experience this morning. I arrived at Wellington Airport. It's awesome. It's been upgraded. It's just quite beautiful. I went to the bathrooms. Oh, there's the new Dyson tap. Does anybody know about the Dyson tap? Oh my God, what an experience. And okay, small stuff gets me quite excited. The Dyson tap would be one of those things. So it's a tap and it has two wings off it like this. Like, yes, you put your hand under, well, you get some soap first. You put your hand under, you're washing your hands. This is really cool. And then you move your hands out and give it a little tap and it dries my hands. I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm drying my hands on the tap. Small things amuse me. But then I went, okay, I wear a few rings, right? So then I went, okay, what I normally do, because perhaps the men might not appreciate this, but as a woman, I've got a lot of jewellery on, and when I'm drying my hands under the air dryer, I need to rub my hands together, otherwise the water gets trapped under my rings and it's quite uncomfortable. Can anybody see the problem coming? So I put my hands together to dry my hands and do that, and they get wet again. You'd think I'd figure that one out, right? In my defence, I'd only had one really bad coffee in Auckland, so it was a little slow this morning. But the reality is, that's a fantastic piece of design. It is very sexy design. Where did it fall apart? It was actually getting out and designing for the right user experience. It's in the user interface. It's in understanding how people actually really use it. So as much as I admire Dyson as a company, and I do truly admire them, I think that one is an almost ran. Okay, so what does all this mean? Digital dexterity, decoding the digital landscape. There's a lot of information that I've delivered in a relatively short time there. But if I just take you through this graph, so, you're going to lose me if I do that, so I'll stay back here and just do this instead, like I'm in Disneyland. So the digital organisation, what's at the heart of that? Remember, it's about having a digital-first mindset. It's about practices, workforce enablement, and resources. And fundamentally, that is all underpinned by the motivation, the engagement and the collaboration of our people. If we haven't got hearts and minds in alignment, what's going to happen? I personally have experienced a situation where we've had a multi-million-dollar project that fell over at the last hurdle because we had a conflict of interest across the organisation about what needed to be delivered when. There is nothing more heartbreaking and that will drive disengagement than the lack of clarity and at a strategic level on what you need to do in your business. So digital transformation, digital dexterity, it's really simple. It's about these things. So some of the things that I've learned along the way, I've got a couple of slides to finish up on. I'm really happy to take questions as we go or at the end of the session. Some of the things that I've learned and a couple of little tidbits about how we as a nation can actually unlock greater value. So the New Zealand Tech Report came out in June of this year. It's really worth a read if you haven't already read it. There's a couple of key stats that came out for me. One of them is that companies that use what is termed internet services, so essentially for me that means how I use all of these techniques and tools that I've just talked about. If I'm a small business or a large business, it doesn't matter. How I use technology to enable my business to move to work smarter. If we were all using, the statistic is 6%. You get 6% greater productivity by using by using internet services across your business. I need that other coffee. The second thing that really interested me about that is, okay, 6% productivity increase. Yep, okay, that sounds sort of good. But if all businesses across New Zealand did this, we would increase GDP by $34 billion. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if we had another 34 billion, I think we could do some really useful things for the country with that. The other interesting fact around that for me is that in terms of SMEs, there's something in the order of New Zealand SMEs that are actually using this are getting 20% increase in sales revenue as well as productivity over the people who aren't using technology and who aren't using tools and internet services to enable their business in a really cohesive end-to-end way. So fundamentally, we're a nation of SMEs. 70,000 businesses in New Zealand are SME businesses. If you think about, well, what does that mean for my business? I mean, I know in my business, to be honest, I'd really like to improve how we actually manage our sales funnel, how we use our CRM tools. I think that's something that would enhance my business. So again, it's all these little strands, weaving them together in a cohesive way. So, what are the things that I've learned? Technology is moving and changing and evolving faster than any of us can keep up with. So the key things I would take out of that is, first off, adopting technology that's best aligned to your strategy makes fundamental sense. But if you haven't got a cohesive strategy that everybody's playing to in the same way, then the technology isn't going to help you. What I have learned is about experimenting on the edges. Now, this is, I think, a really important point. In the case of, I have seen companies and I have had people come to me and say things like, we want a viral video. It's like, that's good. Why? Well, we really like Running Man. Okay, that's great. We love that too, and we'd love to make you a viral video, but why? What are you trying to achieve? So going back to actually understanding what the pain point in your business is and why you're trying to bring technology in, diagnosing your pain point first, as opposed to just going, this is the right technology for us, or this is the right digital marketing communication tool for us. Jumping a generation of technology wherever you can. And what does that mean? Well, I have a case in point at the moment where we have a client who wants to improve what they're doing today, what they've got, and that's doable. But what we're saying is, look, if you actually invest that time into taking technology one step further, you're actually going to invest all the same time and energy and cost in improving what you do today on an existing platform. But if we take a step forward, then you're going to get all the benefits that you would only have to redo at a later date. Now, the response to me was, but then I've got a Rolls Royce that's when I only need a Mini. Well, the reality is, the way the market is moving, all the functionality and all the capability, cost-wise, not that much different, so cost-benefit is really reasonable. At the end of the day, why wouldn't you invest a little bit ahead of the curve so that as your business grows and adapts, you've got the right technology and you're not having to continually go through that process? Designing for change, open systems are absolutely key. Using Agile as a methodology. We actually use Agile in our business strategy and our business planning, which has been really interesting. It's, I think, a much better way than sitting down as a company once a year and going, okay, well, what's our strategy? Yep, that's what we want to do. And then maybe we've got some programs falling off that. We actually ran the setup for our strategy this year in 2-week sprints. We had some projects that rolled off that. And we're using the both design-led thinking and agile methodology for our planning tool, which has been really fun. It's been quite a different way to do it. I know it's obvious, but sundowning old technologies, what a headache. The number of companies that do have, particularly in those large corporates with legacy systems, that aren't working on getting rid of those old systems, the time, money and opportunity cost in that, I think it speaks for itself. The investing in people and continuous learning. This one, I think, from a management point of view and from an organisational design point of view, is imperative. And funnily enough, this isn't actually just about the workforce and us working in the business. I talk to boards about this a lot. I talk to my peers in governance about it. Just thinking how I'm going to not name names in this one. I was in a session recently and talking about cybersecurity and risk at a governance and a board level. And, people in governance who tend to have perhaps finished the end of their corporate career, maybe they're a little bit older, they might come from a finance or a legal background, and they're really concerned about, cybersecurity risk, what are we doing in that space? Interesting statistic, around 50% of them don't even have a password on their mobile phone. Talk about risk, mate, if I pick your phone up and I can look at all your emails, there you go, Hillary, don't do that one. Okay, so how to get it right. So transparency, adaptability and collaboration. For me, these points are absolutely, I can't stress this enough. A couple of little war stories out of this space. Going with an experienced partner, don't be first. Don't ever do it, and particularly in New Zealand. I've worked in organisations and with organisations that have taken the promise of a massive global enterprise solution. They're not here on the ground. They've got fantastic partners in Sydney. We'll be there, we'll put people here, and it has been a nightmare. What should have taken 6 months to roll out, 3 or 4 years later, is still not being used properly. So my strongest piece of advice, use local partners. Now that doesn't mean you can't use global enterprise platforms, and you should be, but use local partners for your implementation. Because yes, the technology is incredibly important, but it's just as much about the implementation, the understanding of your business, and actually something as simple as getting your team trained up to use it properly. The point around lack of capital and experience, if you're a smaller business or you might be a tech startup, I've got a number of friends who are angel investors, even if you're a small business and not a tech startup, getting experienced people on your board as an advisory board, or if you're getting them to invest in your business, listen to them and take the advice. I know that sounds logical, but I do know of clients I've worked with who don't do that. You're not maximising the opportunity. And capital to grow your business is really hard to come by. Choose wisely, listen to those people, get them on the board, and even as an owner-founder, if it goes against where you want to take the business, take that counsel. I think we've covered stakeholder engagement, but the last thing I would say, and again in businesses, this can be quite hard. A project I started about 5 years ago, the board wanted a 5-year business case and a waterfall project methodology and wanted us to be able to say, okay, we're going to start at A and we're going to deliver Z and we're going to do it in a sequential fashion. It doesn't work that way. You'd be surprised at the number of people I talk to, whilst we talk about Agile in terms of business strategy and project management, absolutely. But when it comes to that communication at the board table, to be able to say, hey, look, we wanted to get here, that didn't work, so we've gone there, but we're going to get there eventually. That requires trust. But there's just no way that I can guarantee you in 5 years I'm going to be delivering X and it will do X. The market's changing too quickly, customer needs are changing too quickly, competitors are changing too quickly. I think that's incredibly important for anybody who is working with boards or working in larger organisations. So some of the lessons I've learned, and some of these have been easy and joyful experiences, and some of these I have the scars on my back and it's been quite painful, but very good learning opportunities is how I like to call it. So really it's the intersection of digital capability and people. You're not going to get value from what you invest in if you actually haven't got people and your processes and your systems lined up to use that right. Dexterity, key thing is this, think about this is what's going to enable me to move and adapt and pivot to market changes, move quickly and be adaptive in the market that I operate in. Fostering a digital first mindset. This is really important. That does not mean, hey, we should do sugar CRM, shouldn't name names. Hey, rewind that one. We shouldn't go to a technology solution first, right? I talked about the fact that I have clients who come to us and say, hey, we want a viral video. It's like, yay, but why? Hey, I've seen the CRM system. I think it's great for us. We should use that. Okay, why? What's going on in your business now? What are your challenges? Where we start when we work with our clients is to understand their business. So tell me about your goals. Tell me about the problems that you're experiencing. Tell me what's going on in the competitive landscape. From that, we'll devise a business strategy that's actually enabled by digital. Now, I don't need to be a tech expert. We've got partners for that. But what I do need to know is how are we going to use digital technology to enable me to get real-time customer information, to interact with our customers, to change our course. If something we're doing isn't working, we can really pivot quite quickly and change what we're doing because it's enabled. Digital skills, digital capability, remembering it's about customer experience, around operations and around workforce enablement. So remember the Disney story. It's a great example of bringing all of that together. Collaboration, I think we've talked about, but the last point that I'd focus on is this is a long game and it's the typical S-curve. So you'll get some wins and it's feeling great and you're getting to where you want to be, and then something plateaus, or worse, something tails off a bit because something hasn't quite worked the way you planned. This comes back to working in Agile. Agile for me is not just a project management tool, it's a tool that you can use right across your business. So those are some of the joyful and painful lessons I have learned over the period of my career, and I would be very happy to take questions and talk that through now.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? I've got a few. I'll start then. One of the things that I hear a lot in New Zealand business is short-term thinking, influenced by short-term incentives, whether it's by the for the exec team or the board. Digital transformation and the sorts of programs that you've embarked on, I imagine probably relatively longer term.
Yeah.
How have you gotten over that short-term thinking and the barriers that you see there?
This comes back to alignment at that governance level, and even if you're a small business, you have some form of governance.
Yeah.
So whether that's with with partners, with the investors in your business, you might be 2 or 3 people. But the way you get over it is to actually have your KPIs aligned to a longer-term strategy. I think it's also about making sure that the way in which we jointly deliver our strategy is aligned, our KPIs are aligned to that. So, if my KPIs and your KPIs aren't aligned, it doesn't matter whether it's short-term or long-term, we're not going to be in the same place. And then financial incentives and rewards around that, I'm not a fan of seeing short-term incentives. I prefer to see a long-term incentive plan, and that can be paid out in different ways. It can be shares, it can be whatever the methodology is. But actually lining up around our business strategy, our business strategy is just not a one-year program. So I think it's about having that vision and then structuring appropriately to achieve it.
Right. And you're touching there on what was going to be my next question, which is how you motivate and engage everybody below that level to go on that journey and stay on the journey. And you talk about financial incentives. How else do you do that?
Look, leadership and management. And, leadership's not easy. It's really, really hard when you're in the space of actually, I'm running my business, I'm trying to adapt my business, I'm trying to deal with competitors, I've got customers, something's not working there. Taking the time to actually make sure that our team, our partners, in some cases our customers, actually understand where we're going and that we're on the same page and dealing with issues. So getting feedback, and whether that's feedback from people or feedback from your customers, and also feedback from your partners. It's hard, the pace in which we operate in, and particularly when you're a smaller enterprise, you don't have the structure that you do in a large corporate. So you've got support from organisational design, you've got support for how you train people, you've got strategy people who are there to help you deliver this. As we said, we're a nation of SMEs, so making sure that you take the time for communication, for questions, comments, is really, I think, fundamentally it, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll just keep going. One of the things I'm interested in is and I've heard this a lot through different talks on innovation, is customer centricity, customer first, focusing on the need, and then working backwards from that. Maybe a little counterintuitive, but is your view that, and you've talked about the Disney experience, which is very much using technology to make Disneyland more human in a lot of ways, right? Is that a fundamental principle? Is that technology is not there to dehumanise businesses, but in fact to increase the humanity of it?
Yeah. If you go back to that point about capability, it's actually about understanding the customer experience, or it might be about understanding the pain point. So, for instance, with Disney, one of the pain points is that when I go there, I've got to queue for 4 hours to get on a ride. Well, they've solved that by having a booking system. And then they've evolved that by saying, okay, well, rather than just a booking system and taking a ticket, how do we actually use technology to enable that experience further? Let's think about the joy that you can experience at Disneyland. That's what it's all about, right? I don't go to Disneyland just for the rides. It's actually about the joy and the experience. And, as an adult, I went there thinking, a day at Disneyland is going to kill me, but I have to do it for the kids. I had so much fun. It was amazing. And a lot of that was because it was enabled by technology. And I know that sounds a bit sort of naff, but not having to stand there and wait in a line. Oh, fantastic. Being able to actually do something as simple as to have this wristband and be able to go and use that to get into your room. All of those pieces are actually about a customer orientation. But it's not, it starts with the customer, but it's also about actually solving operational problems. And improving efficiency. So if I can just go and buy my massive Minnie Mouse.
Did you
for
buy one of those?
instance. One came home, don't ask me, it wasn't me, but anyway. And I just simply have to swipe my wristband. 2 points there. A, how easy is that? B, don't let your kid take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that also touches on that point of aligning to a strategy. So I think you talked at the start about, a digital strategy doesn't sit by itself. You have a strategy and then you enable that through digital technology and a digital roadmap. Yeah, which is, I guess, very much how Disney have done it, right? Their vision is to, make people happy and provide magic experiences, and how can we use digital to enable that? So,
yeah. And look, I think that's a really important point, because it's going back to, a digital-first mindset is actually about strategy. So it's about starting with, okay, what's the pain point I'm trying to solve for? What's the problem that we're trying to get past? And that might be a business pain point, it might be a customer pain point. And really, one of the things that we do in our business is about customer experience and journey mapping. And Joe and I worked on a project together with New Zealand Post. I can speak to this piece. And when I looked at what the CX team, the customer experience design team, had done, I thought, well, it's Post. How hard is that? Mail comes in, mail goes out. You do something with it, you throw it out. I was amazed and quite blown away by how many different ways businesses, consumers actually deal with post, with mail, with parcels and packages. It really was quite astounding. And I think, the point there is, if you actually start by understanding the customer experience, my lovely Dyson hand dryer moment was a bit not so good. And then you design for what is the customer need, how is the market changing, what is the competitive advantage we have, then how do we enable the strategy with digital technology? What's our current state? What do we need to change? What do we need to improve? And then, of course, it's actually about prioritisation, because we all have an amazing array of plans and ideas. We've done that in our own business. I think we came out with 6 key strategies, and off the back of that, I think we identified something like 2 or 3 programs of work per strategy. We went, great, let's get into this. And then we went, no, just wait. We're actually going to start with one strategy, and we're going to get that right, and then we're going to move on to the next one. So you've got to make a call. As much as I would like to have done everything at once, there's people here who work with me who would go, yes, she does make us do that. It is not good practice. So being really clear about the strategic imperative and starting one project at a time, completing that well, I think is fundamental.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about agile thinking? You mentioned how you've started doing that around business strategy.
Yeah.
Is it also a process that you use with your clients in terms of how you operate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's fantastic about agile is that methodology in the way in which you work, and we do use it for programs that we run now. So it's a case of, first principle, getting all the stakeholders involved. So you get a cross-functional team together. Now, I would strongly advise that includes not just the client, but ideally some customer input, if you can get that. Different stakeholders across the business. So I've had my accountant on it. We've had the technical people on it. We've had sales. We've had operations people. Basically, every part of the business has been represented on that project team. And we might come together for a short term, and that project then disbands and we move on to something else. Or it might be like the digital transformation piece I did. That was a multi-year project. I think some of the benefits that, if you run it well, the things that you realise from that are your ability to recognise what's not working quickly. And your ability to be able to go, okay, we've spent X amount of dollars, we've got, so much more that's dedicated to this project, rather than just keep striving to deliver the outcome, even though it's starting to shift sideways, being able to call that, because we're working in 2-week sprints, and we're fundamentally breaking stuff down to a very micro detailed level and saying, okay, if this works, we keep going. Okay, that didn't work. Right, rethink, reset, what are we going to do? Right. So by breaking, having your plan at a very, very micro detail level, it gives you that ability to adapt on the fly very quickly.
Right, okay. And that's something you've seen success of with clients as well in terms of the collaboration?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, who else has got questions?
Come on, Wellington.
They don't want to listen to my voice.
Very quiet.
You spoke about the acceleration of change, and it's got shorter and shorter. And now that it's intra-generational, you don't get hold of the technology anymore. Just calls into question this notion that the oldest people are at the top and the new entrants are at the bottom. So you seem to be advocating a top-down kind of process where you establish sponsors and the C-suite and everybody, and it sort of trickles down, as opposed to what some people advocate, which is a bottom-up approach, where you take it from the customer up. Do you have anything
What's
to
my
say
point
about
of view? Okay, so to paraphrase, the question is, it sounds like I'm talking about strategy and innovation flowing from top down as opposed to bottom up. This question? Yeah, okay. So what I'm actually saying there is if you go to that point about who's your workforce, right? So it's not just your people, it's your partners and your customers, and you think about how you get input to what you want to achieve. I believe it's a combination. So innovation and change comes from within the organisation. Think about the example, the Lloyds Bank example. It's the people who are at the coalface dealing with the fact it's taken me 30, mind-numbing minutes to be able to close your account. Now that feedback comes from literally from the shop floor. The point I'm making there is that it's a combination of, we could have all the best ideas and initiatives and strategic direction in the world, but if I don't have alignment at a board or C-suite level, because it's not just my division, I'm talking really more in larger corporates, larger entities here, but it'll be your division and somebody else. So we've all got our own agendas of what we need to achieve. If that doesn't roll up into key strategic pillars that has agreement and alignment at a board and C-suite level, then we've got the ability to go horribly wrong. So I think to answer your question, innovation actually comes from the ground up, it comes from outside the organisation, and really it actually comes from diagnosing and fixing pain points. That's a lot of it, and that's really the input into the organisation does actually come from within the organisation itself. I've yet to experience a director coming to me and saying, here's a pain point for the customer that we absolutely need to solve, this is the strategy. We have very smart and capable people in governance. Their job is to govern, and they do get involved in, I wouldn't say setting strategy, I don't think that's good practice. They get involved in reviewing strategy and being a sounding board for that. And because if you're in full-time governance, you're coming from a number of different lenses, that's part of the value that they should be able to bring to your organisation as well.
Who else? Nobody else? Okay, great. Well, look, thank you very much, Simone. I think that's been a great little journey through your extensive experiences, and your learnings, I think, are invaluable. Whether you're a massive business or a very small one, I think the principles and the theories that you talk about, proven, are applicable to everybody here. I'm sure you guys will all agree. So please join me in thanking Simone for coming along today. A little gift with,
thank you so much.
Gift with purchase for you. Thank you guys all very much for coming. Again, thanks to the Spark customers. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do these. Thanks very much to Spark Labs. Please make sure that you create as many connections as you can in the room today, and that you provide us with your feedback via the Mobi site. That would be really helpful. Thanks again for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.